The last 72 hours have brought developments that could fundamentally reshape the Detroit Lions as we know them. While we were focused on our playoff push and the critical games ahead, something was brewing behind the scenes that nobody saw coming. Welcome to Lions News Fan Report, your trusted source for all the breaking news, insider updates, and deep analysis on our beloved Detroit Lions. This is where you get the real story, the complete picture, and the honest truth about what's happening with our team. And trust me, what I'm about to share with you today demands your full attention because the implications go far beyond this season. Let me start by painting you a picture of where we are right now. The Lions are sitting at a crossroads moment in franchise history. After years of building, rebuilding, and finally seeing legitimate success, we find ourselves in a position where every decision matters. The front office has worked tirelessly to assemble a roster capable of competing at the highest level, and for the most part, they've succeeded. But success brings its own challenges, and managing a roster full of talented players with expectations and ambitions creates situations that require careful navigation. I've been covering this team for years, and I've seen a lot of ups and downs, but the situation that's developed over the past week is unlike anything we've dealt with recently. It's not about injuries, it's not about performance on the field in the traditional sense, and it's not about coaching decisions. This is about something more fundamental, something that strikes at the heart of team chemistry and long-term planning. The kind of situation that can either be resolved quickly with the right approach or spiral into something that defines an entire offseason. Let's talk about what we saw on the field first, because that's where this story really begins. The game against the Steelers was supposed to be a statement game, a chance to show that we belong in the conversation with the league's elite teams. Instead, we walked away with a 29-24 loss that left more questions than answers. The offense struggled to find rhythm. The running game never got going the way we needed it to, and by the time we were playing from behind in the second half, adjustments had to be made that altered the entire game plan. Now, here's where things get interesting. One of our key offensive weapons, a player who's been instrumental to our success, had a surprisingly limited role in that game. 4 carries for 17 yards. Let that sink in for a moment. 4 touches for a player who just last season was a cornerstone of our rushing attack. One of those carries went for 14 yards, showing the explosive ability is still there, but the other 3 attempts told a different story. And when we needed to mount a comeback in those final 2 quarters, the opportunities simply weren't there. Statistics don't lie, and the numbers tell a compelling story about the evolution of our backfield this season. Last year, this player rushed 185 times for 775 yards and 12 touchdowns over 14 games. That's an average of more than 13 carries per game and nearly a touchdown every time he suited up. The Lions went 15-2 during that magical regular season, and a significant part of that success came from having a balanced, 2-headed rushing attack that defenses couldn't solve. Fast forward to this season, and we're looking at 140 carries for 649 yards and 8 touchdowns over 15 games. The production is down, the opportunities are fewer, and the role has clearly shifted. This isn't about talent. Anyone who's watched this player knows he still has the ability to be a difference maker. The vision, the power, the reliability in short yardage situations, all of that is still there. But football is a game of roles and opportunities, and when your role changes, when the touches decrease, when you see your counterpart getting the lion's share of the action, it creates a situation that requires honest conversation and clear understanding between player and organization. And here's where the situation takes a turn that nobody expected. Tuesday brought social media activity that sent shockwaves through the Lions community. A post highlighting a uniform in the Lions locker room went viral, and that was just the beginning. What happened next has everyone talking, everyone analyzing, everyone trying to understand exactly what message is being sent. The 28-year-old veteran, a player who's been nothing but professional throughout his career, engaged with content on his Instagram, that raised serious eyebrows across the entire fan base. A supporter commented on one of his posts, expressing frustration with how things have been handled this season. The comment specifically mentioned requesting a trade, criticized the treatment and the perceived favoritism toward his backfield partner, and directly connected the team's loss to his reduced usage. And then came the moment that changed everything. That comment was liked, not ignored, not dismissed, but acknowledged with a public interaction that fans and media immediately interpreted as validation of those sentiments. Think about what that means for a moment. In today's social media landscape, every click, every like, every interaction is analyzed and dissected. Athletes know this better than anyone. They understand that their online activity is constantly monitored, that fans and reporters are watching every move, looking for signals about how they're feeling, what they're thinking, where their head is at. So when a veteran running back with a contract through 2027 publicly acknowledges a comment suggesting he should demand a trade, that's not an accident. That's a message. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about drama for the sake of drama. This isn't about creating controversy where none exists. This is about understanding the reality of professional sports in 2025, where team dynamics, roster management, and player satisfaction all intersect in complex ways. The Lions are trying to compete for championships, and that means making difficult decisions about how to deploy their weapons most effectively. Sometimes those decisions don't align with what individual players might prefer, and that's where challenges arise. The shift in backfield usage this season has been noticeable to anyone paying attention. Jahmyr Gibbs has emerged as a true star, a dynamic playmaker who can change games with his speed and versatility. The coaching staff has increasingly leaned on his ability to create explosive plays, and the results speak for themselves in many respects. But that shift necessarily means fewer opportunities for the veteran back who helped establish the foundation of this offense. It's the classic challenge of balancing present performance with past contributions, managing egos with opportunities, keeping everyone engaged while maximizing team success. From a strategic standpoint, the Lions face some critical decisions moving forward. They have a player under contract for multiple years who apparently isn't satisfied with his current role. They have a younger player who seized the opportunity and shown he can be a true number one back. They have playoff aspirations that require every player to be fully invested and focused, and they have cap considerations and roster flexibility to think about as they plan for future seasons. Threading that needle isn't easy, and there's no perfect answer that satisfies every stakeholder. Let me share my perspective as someone who loves this team and wants to see sustained success. I understand the frustration from a player's standpoint. This is a competitor who's produced at a high level throughout his career, who chose to come to Detroit and be part of building something special, who delivered when we needed him last season. Seeing your role diminish, watching from the sideline while games are decided, feeling like you have more to give but not getting the chance, that's genuinely difficult. The competitive fire that makes you great as a player doesn't just turn off when the game plan changes. At the same time, I also understand the team's position. Dan Campbell and his staff are paid to win games, and they're going to call plays and distribute touches based on what gives them the best chance to succeed. If they believe that featuring Gibbs more heavily provides advantages in scheme, matchups, or explosive play potential, then that's what they have to do. Football is a results-driven business, and coaches can't make decisions based on keeping everyone happy if those decisions compromise winning. The real question becomes what happens next. Does the organization sit down with the player and have an honest conversation about expectations, roles, and future plans? Do they look at the game plan and find ways to incorporate both backs more effectively? Do they consider that maybe there's merit to some of the frustration, that perhaps the pendulum has swung too far in one direction? Or do they hold firm in their conviction that the current approach is optimal and hope the player accepts his role? there's also the possibility that gets mentioned whenever these situations arise. Could the Lions actually consider facilitating a trade? On one hand, they have a player under contract who they value and who has contributed significantly to their success. On the other hand, they have an asset that other teams would certainly be interested in acquiring, and if the relationship is soured to the point where it's affecting team dynamics, maybe a fresh start benefits everyone involved. The compensation they could receive might allow them to address other roster needs, and removing a potential distraction could help the locker room focus entirely on the playoff push. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have all the answers, because this situation is fluid and complex. What I can tell you is that the Lions front office has earned trust through their decision-making over the past few years. They've built this roster intelligently, they've created a winning culture, and they've shown they're not afraid to make tough calls when necessary. I have confidence that they'll handle this situation with the professionalism and strategic thinking that's characterized their approach since taking over. But here's what I hope happens. I hope there's open communication between all parties. I hope the player gets a chance to voice his concerns directly and honestly. I hope the coaching staff explains their reasoning and explores whether adjustments can be made. I hope everyone involved remembers that we're all working toward the same goal, which is bringing a championship to Detroit. And I hope that cooler heads prevail, and we find a resolution that keeps this team unified as we head into the most critical stretch of the season. Looking at the bigger picture, this situation reminds us that building a championship roster isn't just about talent acquisition. It's about managing personalities, balancing roles, and keeping everyone pulling in the same direction. The best teams find ways to navigate these challenges without allowing them to become distractions. The great organizations handle internal disagreements privately and present a united front publicly. That's what separates perennial contenders from teams that flame out despite having talent. For us as fans, it's natural to have strong opinions about what should happen. Some of you might think the player is justified in his frustration and deserves more opportunities. Others might believe the current distribution of touches is working and shouldn't be changed to appease anyone. Both perspectives have validity, and that's what makes these situations so challenging. There is rarely a clear right or wrong answer when dealing with professional athletes' careers and egos. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We're going to be covering every development in this story and all the other critical news surrounding the Lions as we push toward the playoffs. Share this video with other Lions fans who need to know what's happening, and let's build this community of informed, passionate supporters who understand the game at a deeper level. Your engagement helps us grow and deliver even better content, so every like, comment, and share makes a real difference. This is Lions News Fan Report, where you get the inside scoop on everything Detroit Lions. Stay tuned, stay informed, and, most importantly, stay faithful to this team as we navigate these challenges together. 1. Pride.